Hey, gang, welcome to It's Still Called Today, a ministry of encouragement. I didn't make it to church today because I got a little sinus infection, but I did watch the sermon today. And my pastor's preaching on quiet faith. Well, he said one thing that just stopped me in my tracks, and it's about Martha, or Mary, when she poured out all the perfume on Jesus' feet. Forgive me, just one moment. I'm reading from the ESV today, my super compact, ultra giant print Bible. But let's read these verses before we proceed. And it's in John chapter 12, starting at verse 1. It says, 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. Verse 2 says, So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining at the table with him. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, who was about to betray him, said, Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? Yeah, Judas didn't say that because he gave an airborne rodent's posterior about the poor. He said it with ulterior motives. Pardon me. Like I said, I'm not feeling real great. But there's something to be said here. My pastor says in his sermon that this is probably about a year's wages, $50,000 to $100,000. And I double-checked my pastor. Yes, I double-checked my pastor. Not because I don't trust my pastor, because I think it's something we all should do. Because you're digging yourself. You're not waiting there to be spoon-fed like a baby bird. But anyway, what he said was indeed true. She poured the whole thing out. And I had to stop and ask myself, am I pouring the whole thing out? Am I pouring out my successes when pride is waiting around the corner to say, look what you did? Am I pouring out my failures when I stumbled once again over that old familiar sin that haunts me and crouches behind the corner and gets me when I'm not looking? Am I pouring the whole thing out when I'm tempted to hold a grudge or be bitter because somebody said something or did something that hurt me? Am I pouring the whole thing out when I want to take credit for something and need to shut my mouth and let somebody else have the day? Am I pouring the whole thing out when I don't know what God has for me and just being faithful where I am? Am I pouring the whole thing out when I'm unsure of what's going to happen tomorrow? See, Judas Iscariot was right. She could have sold that in the market and taken care of herself and her family for about a year. 300 denarii was about a year's wages. And sometimes I have trouble forking over $40. Am I pouring the whole thing out? So that's the question I ask you, brother or sister, who's watching this. Are you pouring the whole thing out? If not, we need to be. If not, ask God to give you the courage to pour the whole thing out. Because He is the whole thing. I've included my pastor's sermon in the description field below. I encourage you to watch it. I thought it was very, very good. I'm glad that I didn't go back to sleep, even though I feel like it. But that's part of pouring the whole thing out. So I ask you, are you pouring the whole thing out? I want to thank you guys for subscribing to the channel. And as I often say, I don't post often unless I have something to say. I feel like there's too many mouths in the body of Christ and not enough ears, not enough hands, not enough arms. Everybody's got something to say. And when I have something to say, I want it to be meaningful and I want it to be accurate. And I don't want it to be my heart either. I want it to be God's heart that I'm conveying. So I encourage you to leave a comment, watch my pastor's sermon, and I want you to encourage somebody today while it's still called today. God bless you guys. Thank you for subscribing.